Hi, this is Tamara at mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to make the Lavender Kisses Cowl, which is a free pattern you can find on mooglyblog.com. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check the description for the link. Now for this pattern, it calls for 1 skein of Red Heart Unforgettable. I initially used the pearly colorway, although I will be demonstrating today in stained glass. So we'll get to see another beautiful colorway with this pattern. This pattern also calls for a 9mm hook. This one is by Furls. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now we're taking a look at the finished Lavender Kisses Cowl. And if I pull it up, you can see we start with a row of double crochet. And I actually recommend starting with foundation double crochet, which I'll demo here in a minute. After that, we've got a round where it's 3 double crochets, followed by skip 2, then 3 double crochets, skip 2 all the way around, and then after that a row of cross stitches. Then we've got our groups of 3 cross stitches, groups of 3 on up until we get to the very last row here, which is just another row of double crochet to cap it off. So let's make it together. Okay, so to begin the Lavender Kisses Cowl, we start with 60 foundation double crochets. So I'm going to start with a chain 2 and then make my first foundation double crochet. I yarn over, I go in the first chain I made, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first loop, that acts as our chain, then I'm going to yarn over and finish my double crochet. So I pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through 2. And that's 1 foundation double crochet. To make the rest of the foundation double crochets for this first row, I'm going to insert my hook under the 2 loops at the bottom of the first one I made, those 2 loops there that represent the chain, pull up a loop, that's the chain for the second stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop to begin my foundation, to begin the double crochet portion, then yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. And I'm going to just repeat that last sequence, 58 more times until I've got 60 total stitches. I don't like to count that chain 2, but I start counting right there. So if you need more instruction on foundation double crochet, I do have a separate video tutorial for that, so you can check that out. But otherwise, I will meet you at the end of our row 1. Okay, so I'm just finishing up 21 foundation double crochets here. Now, as I stated, the pattern calls for 60, but it also states that you can start with any multiple of 3. So if you want to make a custom size cowl that, say, isn't as tall but is bigger around, you can just begin with any multiple of 3 for row 1. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here with 21 just for the sake of time. So after you've made your 60 foundation double crochets or your multiple of 3, then it's time to join to the first stitch to work in the round. So you want to make sure not to twist your first row. We don't want to put any twists in it. That would create sort of a Mobius shape. We want to keep it nice and straight and find that first foundation double crochet we made and just work a slip stitch right in there. Find the right end here and I can make my slip stitch. Now you'll note that the bottoms of this first round are still open and unconnected. So when you go to weave in your ends, you'll want to take that first end where we made our slip knot with, and you can use that and a tapestry needle to just cinch up to sew right to the bottom of that last stitch we made to complete that round. But that can wait for now. So we're going to go ahead and begin our stitch pattern. Now from here until we get to the end, which is just another row of double crochet, is just going to be a 2-row repeat. So, or 2-round repeat, I should say, since we're working in the round. So to begin round 1, we're going to start with a chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And that chain 3 will count as our first double crochet for every even numbered round of this pattern. After that, we're just going to work 2 more double crochets right in that very first stitch. So there's 1, and there's 2. Got a little bit of a fuzzy on our yarn here. Let's go ahead and pull that off right now. Oh, there we go. All right, so that's our first group of 3 double crochets because we've got that chain 3 that counts as our first one. After that, we're going to begin our repeat. We skip 2 and work 3 double crochets in the next one. Whoops. Sometimes we're working with a great big hook and thinner yarn. While I love the effect, it does make it a little harder to keep the loops on the hook, so you want to pay close attention. There we are. So there's 3. Skip 2 more, go to the next one. And we'll just continue this all the way around for round 2. So that when we get to the end, we should have 2 more stitches to skip, and then we can join right to that very first double crochet we made. So I will work my way around here, if I can get in that stitch the right way, and I will meet you at the end of round 2. Okay, so here I am at the end of round 2. I just need to make that last double crochet. You can see we've got 2 more stitches to skip. Might look like 3, but that's our slip stitch. We don't want to count that. So we just want to come over here to the top of that chain 3 we made. Remember, that counts as our first double crochet. I'll try and straighten it out so it's a little easier to see right there. So that right there is where we want to work our slip stitch to finish off row 2. Working into the top of a chain 3 can be a little tricky. You just have to take your time and get under both of those loops. So there we are. And with our slip stitch, we've got the end of round 2. So you can see our stitch pattern starting to come together, and it's time for round 3. And round 3 is where we make our crossed stitches. So this is, if anything, the part that's most likely to trip people up. So let's go together really slowly. We're going to start with a chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that does not count as a stitch for the purposes of this pattern. Okay, it's just easier to ignore it. It gives us our height, but we're not going to call it a stitch. All right, from there, we're going to make a treble crochet. So I'm yarning over twice, and we're going to skip these first 2 stitches. So that means skip the chain 3 and the double crochet after that. We want to go into the third of this set of double crochets. Remember, we worked them in groups of 3, so we go into the third one with our first treble crochet right here. Just work our loops off 2 at a time. Then we chain 1. And then we're going to make another treble crochet. So I'll yarn over twice, and I'm going to come back to that first stitch we skipped, even though it looks like our chain 4 is coming out of there, and strictly speaking it is. Since this doesn't count as a stitch, we're going to go right back into that first one we quote-unquote skipped, the first double crochet of that set of 3. So I'm going to go in there and make my second treble crochet. And you'll notice I'm working directly in front of the first treble I made. So it's not enclosed in it in any way. They're 2 separate stitches. If we pull it sideways, you can see there, they just happen to cross each other over. So let's go ahead and do that again. After we make our first set of cross stitches, we're going to go to the next set of 3 double crochets over here and work another one. So I yarn over twice so that I'm all set up for my treble. I'm going to skip the next 2 double crochets, come to the third one of that set of 3, and make my first treble there. My first treble for this repeat. Okay, so you can see that one scooches all the way off to the side there. I'm going to chain 1, yarn over twice for my next treble, and cross over in front of the one I just made to work into that first one we skipped, the first double crochet of that set of 3. So I want to make sure not to accidentally enclose that first treble that we made for this repeat. You can see when I hold it up there, we've got our X shape. So we've got 2 of those made, and we're just going to continue doing that all the way around. We yarn over twice, come over here to this next set of 3, work into the last one for our first treble, like that, then chain 1, then yarn over, and come back to that first one of the set of 3 for our second, just working right in front of the last one. It's fine to just go ahead and push to the back if that makes it easier. So I will do that for every set of 3 double crochets around. We'll get an X made right on top of it, and I will see you at the end of round 3. Okay, so here I am at the end of round 3. You can see I've got one of my sets of cross stitches above each of my sets of 3 double crochets, and I've come all the way around. So now I've got that first chain 4 and crossed set of stitches that I made. So we want to ignore that chain 4. Remember, that's not a stitch. So I want to come over here to the top of this first treble, and that's where I want to, now that my hook's tangled up, there we are, that's where I want to insert my hook to make the slip stitch that will finish out round 3. So round 3, as I've just shown you, is the first row of our 2-row repeat. You can see got our X stitches right there. So let's go ahead and begin round 4, which is the second row of our 2-row repeat. Round 4 rather, begins with a slip stitch into the chain 1 space. So remember, we joined to that first treble. Now we want to slip stitch into the chain 1 space to begin round 4. So just work a slip stitch right into that space, and now we're in the chain 1. From there, we're going to begin with a chain 3, and since this is an even numbered row, that chain 3 is going to count as our first double crochet. Then I'm going to go back into that chain 1 space and make 2 more double crochets. 1 and 2. And with that, we've got our first set of 3 double crochets that will eventually have an X worked on top of it. So to continue around, we just come over to the next chain 1 space right there in the middle of our next X and work another set of 3 double crochets. This round really couldn't be any easier. Whoops. Well, if you don't drop your stitches off the hook, it isn't. Trying to watch the monitor and talk and crochet all at the same time messes me up once in a while, but the double crochets should go into these chain 1 spaces very easily. There we are. So 3 double crochets in that chain 1 space. You can see the stitches are a little loose. You can kind of zhuzh those a little bit if you like to place them all together, or spread them out if you like that look a little better. Come over to the next chain 1 space and work 3 more double crochets. And we're just going to continue that all the way around until we join to the top of our first chain 3, because of course that is our first double crochet for the purposes of this pattern. So to continue on with the Lavender Kisses Cowl, all you need to do is repeat rounds 3 and 4. So we've got our crossed stitches and then our round of just double crochets worked in those chain 1 spaces. So I'm almost all the way around for round 4 already, since this is just our little abbreviated swatch version of a cowl. Maybe sized about right for, I don't know, maybe an American Girl doll or something like that. But not going to be very wearable by people. So we are almost there. I just want to demonstrate the very last round a little bit on our little mini cowl here. So, yep, there we are. Okay, here's our first set of 3 double crochets, and I will go ahead and join into the top of the first one, which was, of course, the chain 3. There we are. Pull that nice and tight, and I would just keep repeating those rounds 3 and 4 until I had the height desired. In the original pattern, I would do that for 20 rows. Well, it would be 20 rows total, repeating rounds 3 and 4 8 times. But of course, you can make it to any height you want. I wanted to use as much of the skein as I could and get that really great puddling effect that you saw at the pictures at the beginning. So when we get to round 21, we will have just finished a round 4 repeat where we just made our groups of 3, and we just want to cap it off with a simple row of double crochet. So I'm going to start with a chain 3 again, and that will be the double crochet for that first stitch. And then very simply, I'm just going to double crochet in each stitch around. So we don't have to worry about crossing stitches or working into chain spaces or anything like that. For the very last round, you just want to double crochet in each stitch of the round and then join and finish off. And the great thing is with this pattern, if you followed the written pattern, again, link in the description, you'll see that this whole thing only takes 1 skein, almost the whole skein, but almost 1 skein. And when you're all done, you get a really great wearable piece. So I'm not going to go ahead and finish off this row because you know what double crochets look like by now, I hope. You can see that just kind of gives it a nice little capper. And our swatch is a little wobbly because I've been worrying more about demoing the stitches than making them nice and even, but you can see we're already starting to get a really great lacy look. And if I pull back up the finished one here, then you can get another look at it when it's all done here. And you can see I went really, really tall with this. This actually measures 18 inches tall from bottom to top. But then when you wear it, because of the lacy nature of the stitches, it really does puddle quite nicely around the neck. So that is how you make the Lavender Kisses Cowl. I hope this video tutorial has been super helpful for you. If it has, please do let us know in the comments. Give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching.